Hey everybody, I'm doing a quick test to see if I can drink enough coffee to stay alive. All right, I did a previous video talking about balance, and it's actually a pretty interesting topic. So there's a lot to say, and I decided to do something a little unusual. I decided to Google the phrase "I prefer unbalanced gameplay," and I found some pretty interesting things. One, I found an argument in favor of unbalanced gameplay that actually makes sense. And that is, in case of fighting games that have 35 different characters, some people actually prefer some of the characters to be more powerful than others, objectively better, in a way that is unbalanced, simply because it reduces the number of viable characters in the fighting game. So instead of 35 balanced characters, you end up with maybe 5 or 6 viable characters for tournaments, which even that isn't a good argument because the tournaments should just have, if that's really a problem, then that should just be the people who set up these tournaments should just say, these are the viable characters for this tournament. Learn them, learn how to do their counters, learn how to deal with the game. But it is actually a pretty big problem when there are so many characters and they're all balanced that people actually just aren't. It's not possible at that point to actually learn everything. Okay, so there's one argument, but in searching through this, I've found something like this. Here, take a look at this. So this is in the case of PlanetSide 2. Somebody makes a suggestion. What if instead of everything being balanced and dumbed down, that's balance and dumbed down are not the same thing. But what if balance and dumbed down to the point of being just the same as everything else? What if everything was OP in a different way? Okay, all right, hold up. That is asymmetrical balance. If everything has a place and and all of your options just change the way you play and you have interesting choices, then that's asymmetrical balance. That means the game's balanced. It means it's balanced. It doesn't mean it's not balanced. Overuse of the word of the term overpowered. Overpowered is when there's no other fucking gun that matters. Overpowered is when I just use this one ability, it kills everybody, rather than like having to use skill. So I did a little bit further searching, and I found one thing here. Somebody did a poll, or this is in World of Warcraft, for example, and says you know some people prefer balance, some people don't, and he like goes through a big list of all kinds of stuff, um, talking about like the things that are true about balance and unbalanced gameplay. Sometimes people like you know just removing skill from the game and just playing a superior class. Eh, okay, it still fucking sucks. That still sucks. But okay, I see. All right, here's the person who at least understands what's being talked about. But then this right here is this is this is a primary thing right here. The problem with balanced gameplay is to get it truly balanced requires all classes become exactly the same, then it's all down to the skill of the player. That's not fucking true. It's not. It's not true. It has nothing to do with that. Okay? All right, let me try to explain this in a way. Okay, you know how much rat poop you're allowed to have in your food, which is FDA approved? Think of unbalanced gameplay as rat poop, right? And really, if something is within safe levels of rat poop, that means it's competitive. That means that it's actually balanced enough where people can actually apply their strategies. And maybe then it's possible to ask ourselves, like, hey, we can make this a viable tournament game, a game that actually can be taken seriously. So unbalanced gameplay is like how much rat poop you have. I mean, even if you look at a game like CS:GO, not all of the guns are used in all the tournaments. There are seriously, like the Negev is rarely ever used. I mean, it's extremely expensive. There are actually unbalanced things about CS:GO. It's not perfectly balanced game, but it's balanced within rat poop safe levels. Okay, FDA approved. You have just enough rat poop to you can't like it, the trying to achieve perfect balance isn't about like removing 100% of the rat poop. No, it's just about getting that rat poop down to reasonable levels where it's just not totally breaking the game. And if like all of a sudden there's a spike in rat poop because somebody made one of the guns like super good, well now you have too much rat poop and it's not everybody has to reevaluate if the game is a viable tournament. Uh, and there you go. So, and I guess another example, on a side thing, just going over the discussion of this, which actually I kind of think is interesting. I've been thinking about balance for my Quake template. Now I chose Quake One simply because Quake One is, well, it's a game I like and all that. But really, I started thinking a little bit about Quake One in terms of how it stands versus other arena first-person shooters. Quake One is totally different. It's totally different. It's the only game with asymmetrical balance. Well, within reason, but it's the only game that actually bases all of its weapons off of asymmetrical balance. If you look at Doom, super shotgun, rocket launcher, BFG, right? The chain gun, not so much, single barrel sucks, right? Doom has, for the most part, a range of asymmetrical balance, but it's not like literally three guns versus everything else is just shit. That's eight weapons and only three of them are even used, and only one of them is being used for utility. That's the grenade launcher, and then you have shaft and rocket, and those are the only two guns that matter, right? Well, you might be able to get somebody with SNG or something like that. If you look at Doom, you have a range. You look at Quake 2, everything is very, very evenly balanced. It's very symmetrical balance. You look at Quake 3, very symmetrical balance. Hell, if you look at Duke Nukem, symmetrical balance. If you look at Painkiller, for the most part, fairly symmetrical balance. You know what? A Reflex, symmetrical balance. Quake 1 is the only one I could think of that's like that. Pretty much every other game within reason, I'm spilling coffee. Pretty much every other game, arena shooter, is actually symmetrical balance, and it's not just like progressively happening. Doom, while some guns are definitely way more powerful than others, is for the most part fairly symmetrical. So you can nail somebody to death with even the single barrel if you catch somebody and he doesn't have green or blue, you know. So people have a tendency to talk about Quake like it's the only thing, but it's actually an outlier in the entire genre, which is just an interesting point. So, and just because of the fact that Quake 1 has asymmetrical balance doesn't mean that my Quake template, I'm just going to be like, whatever, and like, because it's supposed to be unbalanced, I still have to spend time balancing it. I'm still going to have to sit back and reevaluate all the numbers based on the entire thing, the context of the game, the project, the context of it, the uh, just the way everything's going up about it. I'm going to purposely make it exactly like Quake 1. My goal is to do an asymmetrical balanced FPS, and I'm still required to balance it. So when somebody goes to me and says, "Man, you're making a really unbalanced shooter. Good job." It doesn't make any sense because I'm still balancing it. I'm just balancing it within that context. And rant over. Thank you for watching. You were watching Castle Does.